Welcome to our morning devotions again. It's lovely to have you join with us. Last time we were thinking about what are some of the benefits which indeed flow from being justified, adopted, and sanctified in this life. What are some of the benefits of being a Christian in this world? And we thought of joy, assurance, and peace, and things like that, which are so precious in this life. But today we're thinking in question 37, what benefits do believers receive from Christ at death? So we're thinking here, the moment a believer dies, what's the benefits that come their way? We think of the Apostle Paul. For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. To go for death meant to go to be with Christ, which is far better. So for the Christian, death means going to a better existence. So what are the benefits that a believer receives at that moment of death? Well, the answer goes, the souls of believers are at their death made perfect in holiness, and do immediately pass into glory, and their bodies, being still united to Christ, do rest in their graves till the resurrection. So, as normal, let's just break that up a wee bit. First of all, the souls of believers are at their death made perfect in holiness. The moment a Christian dies, their soul is then made perfect. Someone has said that salvation is being delivered from the guilt of sin, that's being justified, being delivered from the power of sin, being sanctified. But being glorified, going to heaven, means delivered from the presence of sin. No longer will we struggle or fight against sin. That should be one of the things that really gets us down as Christians, that how so often in our Christian lives it seems to be one step forward and two back. We sometimes, like Paul in Romans 7, we almost despair. Who will deliver me from this body of death? We just can't obey Christ and love him and are devoted to him the way we want to be, because we still have the remnant of sin with us even after rebirth. But what the Catechism says is that at that moment of death, the Christian, their soul, is made perfect in holiness. Holiness means we're made perfect. Our souls become perfectly righteous, loving, pure, wise, to be like Christ. Oh, what a wonderful thing. We think of that. First John says, when we see him, we shall be like him in righteousness, in purity. No longer struggling to love him, no longer struggling to obey, but freely, with all our heart, with total devotion, loving and devoted to Christ. The struggle is over, the battle within us is over. What a wonderful thought that is. But there's more. As well as that, at that point of death, their souls be made perfect in holiness. Their souls do immediately pass into glory. That immediately makes me think of the thief on the cross who asked Jesus to remember him when he came into his kingdom. And you remember Jesus' answer? Today you shall be with me in paradise. There's some groups like Jehovah's Witnesses who teach that when people die, their souls sleep. They misuse what Paul has said in Thessalonians about those who have fallen asleep, as if the soul sleeps. Paul, when he says in Thessalonians about those who have fallen asleep, it's a picture of their body. Paul never taught about soul sleep. He taught about dying to go to be with Christ, to enter into glory. So the moment someone dies, a Christian dies, their body goes into the ground, but their soul goes indeed to be with Christ in glory. They enter into glory. They enter into an existence, into a world beyond anything we can imagine. We think of how heaven is pictured as a city of gold, a city which is more wonderful, more glorious than we can ever imagine. I love the wee quote of D.L. Moody. He says, one of these days you'll read in the paper, D.L. Moody is dead. Don't you believe it? I'll be more alive than ever. Why? Because he's passed into glory. And the glory of heaven is Christ. The glory of heaven is being in the presence of Christ, in the presence of God, being with him forever. Oh, what a wonderful thought. So, what benefits do believers receive from Christ at death? The souls of believers are at their death made perfect in holiness and do immediately pass into glory, and their bodies, being still united to Christ, do rest in their graves till the resurrection. It's interesting there it talks about their bodies are resting in the graves, still united to Christ, still belonging to Christ. Some people talk about the body, well, it's just a shell. Well, actually, it's not just a shell. We're body, mind, and soul. And a human being is soul and body. And so, at the moment of death, the soul and the body separates. It separates for a time. The body goes into the ground. The soul enters into glory. But the body goes into the ground to wait for the resurrection. This is one of the reasons why Jews and Christians generally have not cremated those who have died. Now, for those who have seen loved ones cremated, listen, this is not something that indeed is a sin in that way. But the reason why Christians generally did not cremate those who died is because of the hope of the resurrection. It was a symbol. The body was buried with the hope that it would be raised again. Now, of course, a body that's cremated can be raised again. But there's a very symbolic message in burial. The body goes into the ground, will come up again. At the resurrection, at the end of the world, when Jesus comes again. And we'll be thinking about that resurrection a bit more at our next discussion. God bless.